This is the most optimal training split that will maximize your muscle growth. But first, we need to understand what makes an exercise optimal. There are three main principles: mechanical tension, form, and intensity. Mechanical tension is the driving factor behind muscle growth, and simply put, it's the amount of tension that's being placed on your muscle. And to maximize mechanical tension, we want to opt for movements that allow for the greatest amount of stability. We really want to take things like core strength, stabilizer muscles, grip strength out of the equation. So that means we want to be using machines, Smith machines, benches, wrist straps, knee sleeves as much as possible. Not only that, but we want to offer movements where it's hardest in the lengthened position, because that's where our muscle is going to be able to grow the most. Principle number 2. Form. We want our form to be perfect. We want to engage our muscle fibers as much as possible. So that means we just want to go through a full range of motion as well as controlling our movements throughout the entire rep. And the last principle is intensity. These two principles won't matter if you're not training intense. You need to be taking your muscle to complete failure. And opting for movements that have greater stability will make it easier to take your muscle to complete failure. Now let's move on to the structure of the workout. We're only doing 2 sets instead of the typical 3 because this will allow our muscles to recover a lot better, and recovery is where your muscles actually grow. And between these sets, you want to be resting anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes because you want to make sure you're able to give it your all. And lastly, the majority of the sets are just going to be in a rep range of 5 to 8 reps. And this is because the effective rep model shows that it's those last 5 reps that actually grow your muscle. So now you have a basic understanding of what makes a training split truly optimal. So the split that we're going to be doing is a push-pull legs plus Arnold split. So now let's just get into everything. Alright, the first exercise of the push day is going to be a plate-loaded incline machine press. I like starting off with incline movements to bias, building up my upper chest, and for this we're doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. And make sure you keep your arms at a 45-degree angle. Not only will it better align with the upper chest muscle fibers, but it will be safer on your shoulder joints. And then I'm not fully locking out to keep tension on the chest, and I'm not trying to arch my back too much so it doesn't change the tension to my mid chest. And I'm finishing off with some lengthened partials to really just take my chest to complete failure. And the next exercise is going to be some dumbbell lateral raises, a drop set, doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. We're starting off with really heavy dumbbells, just swinging on the way up with a bit of a shrug to engage the upper traps as well, but controlling on the way down. And then once you can't do any more of these cheat reps, drop the weight and do very strict dumbbell lateral raises with super light weight, just focusing on engaging just the shoulder muscles, no traps, and going for a bit of higher reps. And then once you're done with that, go back up in weight and focus on the bottom portion of the movement for lengthened partials. I haven't seen anyone else do this, but my shoulders have been responding really well to it because you're doing heavy stuff and light stuff as well. And the next exercise is a mechanical drop set. We're doing an anterior delt machine press to dumbbell interior raises. 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range for the machine press and 6 to 10 reps for the raise. And we want to make sure our shoulders are adducted at a 45-degree angle because then we'll be pushing in the scapular plane. And we also want to make sure we're leaning back just a bit instead of staying totally upright, because this will allow us to better align the movement with our anterior delt muscle fibers. And immediately after, do some dumbbell interior raises, nice, slow, and controlled, and we'll get a really good squeeze at the top. And now we're on to the Incline Chest Flies. We're doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And if your gym doesn't have this machine, that's fine. Just bring a bench over to a cable machine. So what I'm thinking of is getting a nice deep stretch at the bottom with a slight bend in my elbow at the bottom. And then at the top, I'm fully extending my elbow to get a nice squeeze in my chest. And of course, nice, slow, full range of motion, and finishing off with some lengthened partials. And now we're on to my favorite tricep movement, the Tricep Pushdown mechanical drop set. We are doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And shout out TNF for putting me on this, because I have not gone back to normal tricep pushdowns ever since. But what you want to do is grab a long rope. If you don't have a long rope, just use 2 ropes and attach it to the same cable, and then you're going to want to take a couple steps back. This will change the tension to work our triceps in a more shortened position. Go to failure there, then go back up to the cable, place your hands higher up on the rope, and then start doing pushdowns there to failure. This will work our tricep in a more mid to lengthened position. And once you go to failure there, drop the weight if you have to, but turn around and start doing overhead tricep extensions. This is going to work our triceps in a fully lengthened position. And again, this is my favorite tricep exercise because it takes it through all different tensions, and it's just going to completely fry them. And to finish off the push day, we're just going to do a set of bodyweight dips till failure. Make sure you're leaning forward so it biases that chest more, and going all the way down, shoulder to wrist joint. Alright, so the first exercise of the lat bias pull day is going to be a wide grip pull down. We are doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. And the reason we're doing a wide grip pull down is because it's going to better bias our iliac lat, because we're pulling in the frontal plane, and that's where they have the best leverage. And I try not to let my arms go all the way up, because then the teres major and minor start to take over, and we're really trying to bias our lats here. And of course, we want to be using wrist straps for all our back movements, because we really want to take grip out the equation and push her back to complete failure. Alright, the next exercise is a lat bias machine row. We're doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. While doing this, we want to make sure we're keeping our elbows tucked in as much as possible and driving our elbows into our hips. We don't want our elbows flared out or driving our elbows behind our hips, because that's going to start to engage more of our traps and our rear delts. And again, we're really trying to bias our lats on this day. And since we're pulling in the sagittal plane, which is just a fancy word for saying we're pulling front to back, we're going to be biasing more of our thoracic and lumbar lats, which is our upper lats. The row and the wide grip pull down is really going to make sure that you're hitting every single part of your lat, and they're just going to blow up. And of course, we want to be finishing off with some lengthened partials. Now we're on to wide grip machine rows to Shrug's mechanical drop set. We're doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range, and this is the only trap movement that we're going to be doing today. And since our elbows are flared and we're pulling them behind our body, we're going to be engaging a lot more of our traps. And once you can't do any full rows anymore, just finish off with some shrugs. That's going to take your traps to complete failure. And the next movement is going to be a reverse pec deck fly. We're doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. It's not a really complicated movement. This is going to hit our rear delts primarily, but also involved a little bit of our traps. And just really focus your attention into your rear delts and using your rear delts and driving your elbow behind your body. And as you can see, I'm kind of just letting the grip rest on my hand as opposed to gripping it. I like doing it this way, but do it however you'd like. And of course, always finishing off with lengthened partials, because that's where we're going to make most of our gains, in the lengthened position of the muscle. And now we're doing a lat pullover mechanical drop set. We're doing 1 set in the 6 to 10 rep range, and same principles from the tricep pushdown. You want to take a couple steps back and keep your torso upright so we can focus on the shortened position of our lats. And once you go to failure in that shortened position, you can take a couple steps forward, lean over a bit more, and work your lats in a more lengthened position. The reason we start with the shortened position is because the shortened position is going to get fatigued a lot faster than the lengthened position. As you can probably tell by now, I like to put a lot of thought behind the way I structure my workouts and how I do my movements, because I want to make the most out of the time I spend in the gym. The next exercise is going to be a hammer Zotman curl. We're doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range, and I'm doing it against a preacher curl seat. because I want my elbows to be in the padding so I can have greater stability and push my elbow flexors to failure a lot more effectively. Now, I'm doing this a bit differently than normal Zotman curls. I'm coming up as a reverse curl, twisting my arm, coming down as a hammer curl, then coming back up as a hammer curl, twisting my wrist, and coming down as a reverse curl. And the reason I'm doing it like this as opposed to normal Zotman curls is because I'm really trying to bias the brachialis and brachioradialis, since those are my weak points. And of course, you guessed it, finishing off with some lengthened partials. Every movement, finish off with some lengthened partials. And we're gonna be supersetting that with some cable wrist curls, still doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. But the Zotman curls worked more of our forearm extensors. This is going to work more of our forearm flexors. Totally stole this from Sam Sulek, and I definitely like it a lot more than just using a normal barbell. And the last exercise is going to be a superset. On the left, it's neck extension, starting off with that, and then on the right, it's neck flexion, finishing off with that. And we're doing 2 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, and this is the only time where I don't take my muscle to complete failure because I don't want to get a strain in my neck. Yes, I know, it looks goofy as hell, and it looks like I'm practicing my head game. Pause. I'm not like that. I swear, man, I swear, but I just want an aesthetic neck. Having a thick neck makes you look a lot more masculine, and that's what I want. So now on to my favorite day of the week, leg day. And I know you probably think I'm crazy for saying that, but listen, man, I love it because it's the hardest. And that's the mindset you gotta have. You gotta love the discomfort. But anyways, enough of the motivational talk. This is a quad and adductor bias day. So we're starting off with the good girl machine. We're doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range, and obviously good form, nice, slow and control, good squeeze at the top. And I actually don't do it in this clip, but once I go to complete failure, I like to get help from my upper body and do some shortened partials, and then go into some lengthened partials. And for the lengthened partials, I don't get help, but for the shortened partials, I do. But I do this because I'm able to really take my adductors to failure. And I used to avoid this machine because I thought it was super sus. And you just grow up and mature and realize this is the best machine for leg day. This is what's going to make your legs look a lot bigger because it fills in those inner thighs and just makes your leg look a lot wider and thicker. So don't sleep on this machine. Grow up, just like the neck extension and flexion. Grow up, do this. Promise you won't regret it. And now the next exercise is leg extensions, 2 sets in the 6 to 8 rep range, and I have the seat all the way pushed back so I'm able to have my hips less hinged, and that's going to make it so it's able to work more of my rectus femoris. The rectus femoris is probably the most underused part of the quad because squats aren't able to hit them as well. You're able to hit your rectus femoris when your hips are flexed as opposed to them being pushed back and hinged. And the rectus femoris is what's going to make your quads actually look super thick. And then at the end, I lean forward more so it shifts the tension more to my vastus medialis, that teardrop front part of your quad. And the next exercise is knee over toe calf raises with tibialis raises. Doing 3 sets in the 10 to 15 rep range for the calf raises, and then as many reps as possible for the tib raises. For the calf raises, I'm focusing on driving through my big toe and just bringing my heel up and down while keeping my knee bent. And I keep my knee bent as far as it's able to go over my toe without my heel being lifted off the ground. This ensures that I'm getting a really good stretch in my Achilles and my ankle. Now, this isn't really a muscle building exercise. I'm focused on endurance and just building healthier joints because I've suffered from a lot of ankle sprains, and doing this with tib raises have been helping a lot. But if you want to opt for more muscle building, just do standing calf raises or seated calf raises in the 6 to 10 rep range. And for the tib raises, I'm keeping my knees fully extended and having only my butt against the wall and just focusing on bringing my toes up to the ceiling. Make sure you do your tib raises. It helps a lot with overall joint health and mobility, especially in your knees. It's like if you were to do tricep extensions, but no bicep curls. It doesn't make any sense. The tibs are the flexors of your ankle, while the calves are the extensors of your ankle. But for the tib raises, I'm also coming up on my toes and lifting my heels up because it helps hit the very bottom portion of my Achilles, and it's been helping a lot with my Achilles health. Also, I twist my ankles in and out just to get some extra movement in my ankles. It's been also helping with my lower leg and ankle Achilles health a lot. And the farther out your feet are from the wall, the harder it's going to be. So I like to start out pretty far, and then as I get to failure, I just move my feet closer to the wall. So yeah, as you can tell, I kind of just play around with it, not too strict, and it's been working really well for me. And the next exercise is a heel elevated hack squat, doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. And as you can see, I have a band attached to it because it will change the resistance profile to better match the quads. And that's also why I'm deliberately lifting my heels off of the platform, because I'm able to drive my knee over my toe a lot more, getting a deeper stretch in my quad and allowing my quad to grow a lot more effectively. And to finish off the leg day, I'm doing a set of sissy squats with lunges just to complete failure. And as you can see, I'm lifting my heels off the ground on my toes, keeping my glutes flexed so there's no hip hinge, which will bias the rectus femoris. The sissy squat is going to work your rectus femoris in a lengthened position. This is the only movement that can do that, so make sure you're incorporating this in your leg day. And then doing lunges after this just allows you to take your quads to even further failure, resulting into bigger quads. So now we're onto the Arnold split. This is a chest and back day, and we're starting off with the incline press machine, doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. And we're just applying the same principles that I mentioned earlier in the video. And then we're gonna move on to some shrugs, doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And take a wide grip on this because it will better align with your upper trap muscle fibers. And I like to bend the elbow just a little bit because I feel like I get a better contraction in the upper traps. And of course, finishing off with some lengthened partials. Onto my favorite chest movement. It is mid to upper chest flies, mechanical drop set into a chest press. We are doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And I'm using a bench on the cables because the bench is going to allow you to have greater stability to push your muscle to failure more effectively, and the cables are going to have a smoother resistance profile. So like mentioned earlier, for the incline chest fly, on the way down you want a slight bend in your elbow to get a better stretch in your chest, and fully extending your elbows at the top to get a full squeeze. And once you go to complete failure on the chest flies, you want to start doing presses. I kind of just play around with the press. I don't do it in the same arm path, but do it however you like. And of course, lengthen partials at the end. Now the next exercise is a T-bar row mechanical drop set into shrugs. We're doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. Same principles from the wide grip machine row. So this video is starting to get a little long, so I'm just going to fly through everything, but all the principles in the next exercises have already been talked about. The next exercise is a decline press, just doing 1 set in the 5 to 8 rep range. If your gym doesn't have this, just do dips. It will work the exact same part of your chest. To finish off the chest and back day, we're going to do a set of pull-ups and then chin-ups after the pull-ups. And if you're unable to do these exercises, just do a wide grip pull down into a reverse grip pull down, or just using the machine that your gym has that allows you to do this. And even though this is a chest and back day, I like to finish off with some lateral raises because you can never have too big of shoulders. And I just do a set of this in the 6 to 10 rep range, and then I do a drop set working in the same rep range. Now we're on to the SARMs day. We are doing a dumbbell interior press instead of a machine, doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. Same principles apply from the machine press. And then same thing as last time, we're going to do a drop set into some dumbbell interior shoulder raises. And the next exercise is my favorite shoulder exercise. It's a mechanical drop set, Y raise into lateral raises. We're doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And the Y raises are going to work your lateral delts in a more shortened position. And then the cable lateral raises are going to work them in a more lengthened position. So it's super optimal. And then we're going to do machine preacher curls, doing 1 set of this in the 6 to 8 rep range. My biceps are a strong point, so I don't really need to do too many sets of this, but if you want to do more, then That's perfectly okay. And the next movement has also become another staple in my program, a JM press mechanical drop set into a close grip bench. We are doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And this is going to work more of our medial and lateral delts. And always opt for the Smith machine for this. I used to hate the Smith machine and then I grew up, but the Smith machine will allow you to have greater stability, allowing you to push your muscle to failure more effectively. The next exercise is going to be a dumbbell bicep curl mechanical drop set into a hammer curl, doing 1 set in the 5 to 8 rep range, and again doing it against the preacher curl seat so we can drive our elbows into the padding for greater stability. And then we're going to do the tricep pushdown mechanical drop set, my favorite tricep exercise, doing 1 set in the 6 to 10 rep range. And to finish off the SARMs day, we're going to do cable rear delt flies mechanical drop set into cable rear delt rows, doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. Now, when you're first doing the cable rear delt flies, you want your body to be parallel to the cable because it's going to work it more in the mid to lengthened position. And then once you go to failure in that position, turn your body away from it because it's going to work our rear delt in a more lengthened position. And then once you go to failure there, do some cable rear delt rows to take that rear delt to complete failure. Now, the last day of the week, it's a leg day that's posterior chain focus, meaning the spine, the hamstrings, and the hips. And we're going to be starting off with some knee over toe calf raises with tib raises. Now, after that, we're going to do some Nordic hamstring curls, 3 sets with 5 reps. This is super demanding on your hamstrings, and it's super good for bulletproofing the back of your knee. It's not the best muscle builder, but it still will build muscle, but it's super good for joint health. Now, if you can't do Nordics at your gym because they don't have a machine like this, then you can do glute ham raises. But if you don't want to do either of those, just opt for a seated or lying leg curl. I will say I like the seated leg curl more than the lying leg curl because you're able to hinge your hips and get a better stretch in your hamstrings, allowing for your hamstrings to get bigger. The next exercise is going to be a squat press, doing 2 sets in the 5 to 8 rep range. Now, I'm placing my feet at the midline, going a bit wider in my stance, and turning my feet outwards. This is going to better bias my adductors and my glutes. And the next exercise is going to be some RDLs, doing 2 sets in the 6 to 10 rep range. And I'm going pretty light in this, just doing 135 because I have some back problems, man, so I'm working through it, and just going light on this and just really focusing on form has been helping. Finishing off with a leg extension, sissy squat, lunge, mechanical drop set, doing 1 set in the 6 to 8 rep range. And this time on the leg extension, I don't have the seat all the way back. I'm trying to bias a bit more of the vastus medialis because the sissy squat's going to do a good job in hitting that rectus femoris. And then these last exercises are just some accessory exercises that I'll just throw in every now and then. And this is a back extension. I'm focusing on bringing my arms across my body at the bottom and then up in front like I'm doing a Y raise because it's going to work my entire spine. And then I do some cable crunches. This is a machine crunch, but typically I do cable crunches. This is going to work the upper abs. I'm just focusing on rounding the top half of my spine. And then the next movement is going to be a decline leg raise. And I'm just focusing on rounding the bottom half of my spine to work those lower abs. And then the last accessory exercise is a Jefferson curl. Just focusing on rounding my low back a lot and then just coming nice and slow on the way back up. And that brings us to the end of the video. I really hope you're able to gain something out of this. Maybe you incorporate some of these exercises, you change the way you're doing your workouts, or maybe you want to try this entire split. If you do, I'll leave it below in the description. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to stay updated. And if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. And remember to always stay curious and aware. Peace.